What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show with myself, Huzefa, your boy, Justin Guitar Hero James. But we got a special guest today. We are very, very happy and excited to introduce Brad Tavares, legendary middleweight fighter in the UFC. He is joining us today as well before this massive UFC 308 card. Now, Brad Tavares, which is crazy, has fought he's fought Israel Adesanya, some of the greatest names in the world of mixed martial arts in the UFC, beat Chris Weidman. But what's very interesting is Brad has actually fought Robert Whittaker. So I'm very curious to know his thoughts when we get to Whittaker versus Chimaev in this main event, or in UFC 308 tomorrow, which is going to be crazy. Anyways, and we're going to I'm coming to Vegas tomorrow. We're all going to be together. Cannot wait. And we're going to watch this card unfold. So anyways, before we jump into everything, did you guys have a chance to see the UFC weigh-ins for 308?
I did not.
Okay, so
I just saw some highlights of it. I just saw some highlights of Hamzat looking like shit.
Okay, all right. So I want to talk about this first. So there wasn't anything that, well, actually, Victor Hugo did miss weight by like 10 pounds, and now they moved that fight up to featherweight, which I think a lot of people are talking about. Right. When we're talking about the main event, I think the main. Yeah, it's crazy,
dude. And you gotta talk. And let me talk about Brad for a second. I've known Brad for a really long time. The guy's been an Extreme Couture. He's been our team captain for 10 years. That's something, I mean, that has never even come close to you, Brad. I see you jump in the tub and you just handle business. Eric said you're one of the easiest guys to cut weight with. Have you ever struggled making weight? Can you imagine missing by 10 pounds, let alone 1 pound?
I cannot, bro. 10 pounds shows you didn't even try. Like 10 pounds? 10 pounds is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. DC was saying on the weigh-in show, he's like, I kind of like Victor Hugo because he's just so disrespectful with that missed weight. Something like that.
Sorry, fellas. My phone just rang. Let me do not.
Oh, you're all good.
No sweat.
No worries at all. Okay. So
you guys hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I lost my audio now.
All right, no worries. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we got you.
I can't hear you guys. What the hell is going on? Hold on.
You know what? It's all good. Why don't you can log off and rejoin.
What happened to my audio? Let me reconnect really quick. Yeah, I can see you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so Brad's going to be joining back in 1 second. Now, we got to talk about these weigh-ins because this is crazy. So you said Hamzat looked terrible. Well, I want to show you guys. We're gonna look at the Hamzat weigh-ins right now, and we're gonna give our thoughts. I really want to get Brad's thoughts too, so hopefully he's gonna jump back in 1 second. Okay, so let's check this out. I see Brad there. All right.
Okay.
All right, Brad. I think you're back in now. Brad, I want to show you. This is the clip of Hamzat weighing in. I'd love to get your thoughts.
No, sorry about that.
Oh, you're all good. You're all good. No worries. Now, here's the thing. I want to give you a little backstory. So I know Hamzat is trained at Extreme Couture. I know he's buddies with some of the fighters at your gym. And I'm a big fan of Hamzat. He's my favorite fighter. And I've been looking forward to this fight for I don't even know how long. I saw the weigh-ins. I was watching the entire weigh-in show yesterday. And this really worried me. But I wanted to get both your guys' opinions and thoughts on how he looked, the weigh-in, and if this gives you cause for concern. So let's check this out.
All right.
$186, the official weight for Hamzat Chimaev.
So Brad, I want to ask you. You fought Whittaker. You've trained with Hamzat. Like from a skill standpoint, where do you put these guys next to each other?
The Hamzat is one of those guys. Like he kind of like a Khabib in a sense. You know, like he's not like the most well-rounded fighter, but in his one aspect of what he does, which is his wrestling and his ground game, he is very, very good. You know, he's an expert there. That being said, you know, we've not really ever seen anybody really out wrestle Rob in that type of sense. I think the best wrestler, let's think back, the best wrestler he's probably fought is Yoel Romero. And even you all did it. It's like, you know, like that type of wrestling and that ground pressure. Although, granted, that's not really Yoel's style either. You know, he's a great wrestler, but he's not like that Khabib or like Khamzat. I think, I mean, if the thing I wouldn't get too concerned about Khamzat with the weight cut is that this is at 185 and he's made 170 a handful of times. Granted, yeah, he's missed weight also at 170, but I would be more concerned if this fight was at 170 and and is this a 3-rounder? It's a 3-rounder, right?
Five rounder.
Oh, 5. Okay, then yeah, then that even more so for me, I would side with Rob because we know Rob can go all 5 rounds. We have not seen Khamzat have to do that or do that. And I think, I don't know if he's ever even been in a 5-round fight, but I remember his 3-rounder against Gilbert. You know, he started slowing down there at the end. And 5 rounds, you know, that's a full another 10 minutes. Yeah, if he's struggling with the weight, that's going to play a big factor.
Now you went 5 rounds before, I assume. Have you been in the, I mean, tell us the difference. I mean, tell us the difference. I mean, I've went 5 rounds at a much lower level on the regional scene, but you know, when you're fighting the best fighters in the world, Israel Adesanya, how much different is it going 5 rounds instead of 3 in your opinion, in your experience?
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference. You definitely cannot approach training the same way. You know, say we do X amount of rounds on mitts for a 3-round fight. You know, you're gonna probably do 2 to 3 more rounds easily of that. Same with your sparring, your conditioning. It all has to get amped up and ramped up because you're fighting 2 extra rounds. You know, that's a lot more. And especially like when it would be different if, you know, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna fight 3 rounds right now, rest, and then fight 2 rounds later or something. That was completely different. But you're fighting them 5 rounds, 25 minutes. Like, that's a lot.
So now, for you, one more question. Sorry, Huzefa, but for you, you know, when you take a game plan approach to 5 rounds or 3 rounds, Khamzat has so much early output in his rounds with his wrestling, with his striking. He's a pressure forward fighter. Do you think he's going to dial back his game plan to survive those last 4 and 5 rounds if it goes that far?
I don't necessarily think that he will, just because he's never had to before, you know, and he's one of those guys. It's like if you take somebody that's so successful at one thing, Ronda Rousey, for example. Ronda Rousey was so successful in, we're gonna fight, throw hands, whatever. It might not be the prettiest, but I'm gonna clinch you. I'm gonna do that hip toss, get you to the ground, armbar. And then when she comes across somebody that absolutely shuts that down, she struggles, right? With Khamzat, you know, he's not really had that struggle yet. This might be that fight for that. This might be that fight where he has to change his approach. So it would be smart if he and his team did be like, hey, look, this is 5 rounds. You know, this is a veteran fighter. We got to dial it back and, you know, like maybe slow our approach and pick our shots. But because he's not had to do it, I honestly can see him coming out and he's ultra confident. I can honestly see him coming out and just trying to impose that same exact game plan and his will the way he does in all his other fights, you know, because he's not had any type of there's been like no pushback against it. Nobody has been able to stop his takedowns. No one, like Gilbert has been his toughest fight to date, you know, and I'm sure in his head though he feels like whatever, you know, it's so long ago that it happened, kind of forgot the feeling of what it was like getting tired, probably smashes all, you know, his training partners in training, and you know, so he's just riding that high wave of confidence. So I think he's gonna come out and do exactly the same that he's been doing. Just pressure forward, going for those shots, and try to keep the fight there.
I think that, I mean, I kind of agree with you. And also, looking back at the Usman fight, he was very successful. He was extremely successful in the first round with that exact game plan. He was dominating Usman. He almost had the finish. And then he did have that hand injury in round 1 that prevented him from being as aggressive in round 2 and round 3. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then, Brad, I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't know if this is if I'm overhyping this or not. But if you, I watched the entire lead up to UFC 308, and they go to where Khamzat is training. Now, these are the things that he's done for this training camp. And to me, it seems like it's an indication that he's taken it super seriously and really dialed in on all aspects of training. But he's moved his entire camp to the mountains of Russia. He's completely isolated from community and society and away from people. He's got like the best coaches, wrestling coaches and striking coaches in the country of Russia. He's training at the Olympic facility there. He's training at altitude to increase the red blood cells. His coach said it will increase the amount of red blood cells 4x in his body, and that will stay in his body for 90 days after he comes down from the mountain. So I feel like he's taking all the steps to prepare for a 5-round fight, doing things in a very, and he's got a nutritionist now and he's dialed in, right? Obviously the weight cut seemed a little harder than we expected, but do all these things that he's doing, that he's implementing, that he's taking it so seriously, does that give you more confidence in Khamzat, or do you feel like that's kind of overhyped? We can't pay as much attention to that and you're still picking Whittaker?
No, 100%. I still think, like, for me, just looking at it fight to fight, I know that when Whittaker fought Dricus, right, he came out after and said, like, look, that was my fault. I dropped the ball. I didn't take him as serious, this, that, and whatever. And for somebody like Whittaker, I get what he's saying. You know, it's not like he's out there and not training and whatnot. But I think when, you know, like when you've been doing it for so long, maybe, you know, it takes something like that, losing to Dricus, to remind him, like, oh shit, I don't like how this feels. Like, I gotta change this up, that up, whatever. And then so Khamzat, on the other hand, is like, he's doing what he needs to do. I was unaware of all that stuff, but I think that's great for him. I think that he's showing now that he's taking this 5-round fight seriously, you know. But that being said, I think even more so, to the point that we were speaking on earlier, is that because of all that training, I think he'll have that confidence to think that he can just come in like, oh, I've been training in the mountains, I've been going crazy, I can just motor on for 5 rounds. And I think that's what we'll see out of him. I still think, you know, like, I still like Whittaker in this fight, just because, again, like, Khamzat's style, I've not seen anybody been able to do that to Whittaker. And now if he comes in and is able to do what he's done to pretty much everybody else to Whittaker, then that will, bro, like, that's huge. You know, that puts him right up there for title contention. He should probably get the next shot after Sean and Dricus fight. He should fight the winner of that.
I have a fantasy matchup, Brad. I'm just curious your thoughts on it. You know, with your takedown defense, now Brad's one of the, I mean, he doesn't really display his wrestling in his fights because he doesn't need to. I mean, fuck, have you ever been taken down in a fight? And if you have, I mean, you've only been held down very briefly. Now, do you think your style with your wrestling defense would match up well against Khamzat?
Yeah, I think so. Because he wants to wrestle, and, you know, like, that's one thing I've kind of built my career off of, is stopping these guys' takedowns, you know. So it would be fun. And you would think that out of all the times he's actually come to Couture's, we would have, you know, been able to get some rounds in or whatever. But, you know, we never have. Like, it was either I wasn't there a day or he wasn't there a day. It just never happened.
For sure.
You know, one other thing you just mentioned too, right, Brad? You said, hey, if he does that to Whittaker, nobody's ever done that to Whittaker, so that'd be crazy. I also want to throw out, nobody had ever done that to Usman. Nobody had ever done what Khamzat did to Usman.
But short notice, Usman's coming off a lot of knee injuries. You know, dude, listen, Huzefa is gonna stroke Khamzat every, like, dude, just straight, like, you know, it's his favorite fighter. I get it. Yeah. I get it. But I'm not, like I said, this 5-round against a guy that isn't going to get taken down. You know, Gilbert, and he missed weight against Gilbert. It was a short notice against, you know, Usman. I just don't think, and it's at 170. This is at 85. We have a bigger guy. I just think there's so many new variables being introduced at middleweight with this bigger opponent that can't get taken down.
Yeah.
I would say this is his biggest test by far. Like, this is the test to prove if he is what, you know, what you think he is, what he's built to be, like, built out to be, hyped to be, whatever you want to say. This is that test right here. Yes. If he does get past Whittaker, and if he does do it in, you know, like, if it's pretty dominant, I 100% believe that at that point, yeah, let him get the next shot.
Sure.
Because Whittaker is right there, always right there at the top. You know, he's like that number 1, number 2 guy always. There's you know, they do champion and then 1 and 2, whatever, however that works. You know, you would think the champion is the number 1 guy, but they do champion, then down 1 to 10, and Whittaker is always right up there, 1 or 2.
I mean, this is exactly why this fight is so exciting. And how amazing is it that we have Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway at the top of the card? But to me, and again, obviously I'm biased because Chimaev is my favorite fighter. I've been waiting for him to have this opportunity for years. And it's finally here. This to me is the most exciting fight. For me, it's the most exciting fight of the year, and I cannot wait because it's going to answer all these questions. And I do think Khamzat's going to win, but it's funny. I think it sounds like both you guys are choosing Whittaker, and from most people that I'm listening to, most professional fighters, which is worrying me, are picking Whittaker. Very few people are picking Khamzat, and I think it's a combination of the illnesses and the some of these unknown factors, but I don't know. I still believe he can pull it off, and I think it's going to be an impressive fashion, but I guess we'll find out, and that's the fun of going forward with these fights and these main events. So is that right? Brad and Justin, are you guys both taking Whittaker?
I am.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I am too. I just think he's battle tested. He's been there. He's done that. You know, Khamzat is a great front runner. He looks great when he's winning, but I haven't seen him have to persevere through much, you know, besides his injuries and his sickness. But exactly. I mean, you look at Brad, how many times have you broken your hand, you know, and you got to get through that and this and that, like you get injured in fights, shit happens. I mean, when you're a front runner, you know, there's guys, you see it all the time when they're winning. There's certain guys I think of in my head, you know, that I'm not going to say because I don't want to, you know, talk shit. But when they're winning, it's easy to win. But when you have to persevere through an injury, persevere through getting tired, persevere through losing a round or 2 rounds in a row, that's to me what really shows what a champion is. You look like Anderson Silva, obviously, to me, one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Have you fought Anderson, Brad? Brad, did you fight Anderson?
I have not. And
what a crazy match that would be.
I agree with you. I think Anderson is the GOAT middleweight to me.
I mean, look at what he did to Chael Sonnen. He loses 4 rounds in a row and then finds a way, and that's what champions do. They find ways to win when their back's against the wall. Again, he was down 0 rounds to 4, and he subs Chael Sonnen with a triangle choke. Like I want to see Khamzat battle through. I want to see him persevere through some bad situations before I can call him one of the greatest.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, Justin. For me too, I need to see Khamzat face some adversity in a fight. Yeah. I'm sure he's faced it outside of fights. You know, we obviously know he's dealt with a few sicknesses in the past. He's debated retiring. Basically, from what I understand from the leader of their country, he's forced not to retire. Like, no, you're not retiring. You are fighting type deals. And so I know he's faced adversity in life, but as far as like in a fight goes, we haven't really had to see him face adversity. We've not had to see him come from behind. We've not had to see him getting hurt or stunned or dropped or in any real bad positions and then come back and show that, you know, that he does have the grit to do it. Again, though, with this fight here, this is the ultimate test. And if he gets past Whittaker, I 100% believe he deserves the next shot.
Now, personal question for Brad now. So obviously you have fought everybody who's a who's who. You have over 30 professional MMA fights, mostly being in the UFC. Is there one moment particular that sticks out to you in your career? Like, hey, this one time I had to persevere. Maybe I got dropped in a round and I had to come back and battle back. I'm sure there's multiple, but is there one specific instance during your career that really sticks out to you? You're like, dude, I'm fucking proud of this moment. I show that I have fucking dog because of this moment.
I would say, I would have to say probably the Israel fight. You know, sure. Going into that fight, again, adversity. I dealt with some shit. I had broke my foot before that fight, and I don't know if you guys even remember this. So there was so much drama right before that fight. So I was on my way to Hawaii for a wedding or something, and this was like in the middle of camp, and I took the time off because I had broke my foot or fractured it, whatever. I hurt my foot. Anyhow, I got it x-rayed, this, that, whatever. They said, yeah, you have this, you're broke here, your foot is broken. But I was still training. I wasn't kicking, obviously, but I was still able to push off, do certain things, right? I had no intention of withdrawing from this fight. Anyway, I take this 6-hour flight to Hawaii. I get off the plane and boom, my phone just starts blowing up. Messages here, there, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I heard you're out of flight. Sorry, blah, blah. Ariel Hawani's hitting me. Can I get a comment? Blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff. Mind you, Israel and I are the main event for this card here. Anyway, so I talked to Mick. Mick tells me like, hey, bro, I don't know how they got, like, I don't know how Dana got to this point of you're not going to fight, because the last we spoke to him, I told him you're going to fight. Like, because Mick was aware of my injury. But again, there was no issue of I wasn't going to fight. You know, I was 100% going to fight. Anyway, long story short, the fight goes on. I end up taking the fight, dealt with all that drama, whatever. So adversity, you know, dealing with drama before the fight. Get into the fight. The very first kick I threw against Israel, I hit him in his quad, not even like anything hard. I didn't kick an elbow. I didn't kick a shin, a knee, any of that. And my foot just immediately blows up. And I don't know if I threw any kicks with my right leg after that. But anyhow, in that fight, man, he cut me, freaking kicked the shit out of my leg. So that was one of those fights I was like, you know what? I got to dig deep here. I'm fucking, you know, he's putting it on me. But like, what I'm going to do? Like, bitch out and quit? Nah. You know, so I would say if like that's the type of that fight there is that type of moment you're speaking of for me.
And if you haven't seen it, if it's an incredible battle, like Brad, and that's the coolest part. Just to, you know, this is a guy that I look up to, guys, and you know, me and Brad have a relationship outside the gym. We've spearfished together. This is a guy that I look to for advice. Brad, dude, it's hearing that story, you know, with Israel and watching the fight. You know, Huzefa and I talk a lot about he's not a fighter, so he doesn't understand. During fight camps, we get hurt, we get injured, we get sick, we get cut, and all we can do is just deal with it. You know, like a lot of times, like we talk on the show about, oh, well, leading up to this fight, he hurt his hand, he hurt his foot. Like, there's just to go to show you one of the greatest in the world, one of the greatest come out of Extreme Couture, Brad Tavares, going in and fighting. You know, some people call Israel the greatest middleweight of all time. I think he's incredible, but I don't think he's the greatest. I think Anderson is. And, you know, to go up, he knew the task at hand. And that was before Israel was the champ, but he knew he was coming into this realm. And, dude, Brad, that just goes to show how, I mean, Brad's as tough as a dog, man. When you talk about, because I run the kids program too, when I talk about fighters that I want my kids to look up to, Brad is definitely up there because, for one, he's in the gym 24/7. And when he is in the gym not training, he's in there with his daughter doing gi grappling, doing no gi grappling, working with Bryce Harley. Like, this is a guy that I want all my fighters to look up to. And thank you for starting that story, because that's just fucking incredible.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
And guys, if you guys are joining right now, just to give you guys a heads up, so we got Brad Tavares from Extreme Couture, legendary middleweight fighter, is joining the show today to talk about UFC 308. So he was just talking about how he fought Israel Adesanya. He's also fought
Brad. Do you have
Whittaker.
Yep. Do you have a hard stop at 30 minutes? Do you have a hard stop at 30 minutes, Brad? I told you 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I know you're busy.
I gotta go. Yeah, my daughter's off, so we gotta go do some stuff. But yeah, let's knock it out.
I'd love to get Brad's opinion on the main event. Can we jump to Ilia Topuria versus?
Let's
do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Brad, I'd love to hear your thoughts. We've been going back and forth. Justin's leaning Max. I'm leaning Ilia. We've both got our reasons, but let's let you take it away. What are your thoughts, if you don't mind sharing, and why?
Bro, so obviously, you know, you might think, oh, a little biased, the Hawaii connection. Max is actually a friend of mine. But that being said, I really like Ilia. You know, he and we fought on a card together a couple years back. So we got to hang out a bunch. And, dude, he is a super cool dude. And I'm a fan of Ilia, actually. I like his fighting style. I really like his fighting style. You know, if honestly, outside of him fighting Max or Dan, I'd probably be rooting for him. But here, you know, biases aside, just looking at it as fighter versus fighter, I really do think that this is not like, I feel like the odds makers just think like, oh, Ilia this, Ilia that, you know, and that's the way the lines are. But I think this is a good fight for Max. You know, like Max has the length, he has the height, he also has the footwork and the cardio. You know, like Max is not, and I see Ilia baiting. Hey, first 10 seconds, let's point down this and that. You know, I feel like that's Ilia's best chance. And I hope Max doesn't, even though that's Max's like signature move, I hope Max doesn't give it to him at any point, because that's all Ilia needs is those 10 seconds in the pocket, you know. But I don't know. I just see Max's experience. I see his footwork, his length, and just his cardio, you know, being able to move and pick them apart and just throw different things at him. And it won't just be a boxing match, you know, like I know they're talking about so much boxing this, boxing that, but I think we'll see a well-rounded MMA match.
What about Ilia's grappling, his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling base, which is a lot of the foundation of his game? I think people are unaware that he has a Greco-Roman wrestling background, as well as he's trained in jiu-jitsu for years and years. He's a black belt. How do you think that's going to play into the fight? Do you see a lot of grappling, or do you see it still being mostly a striking battle?
I see it being mostly a striking battle. That's because even if Ilia does decide to mix that in there, which he would be smart to do, Max is excellent at defending takedowns and even getting back up. Like, honestly, I can't even remember the last time Max got taken down. I remember early on in his career when he first made it to the UFC, you know, that was something he was struggling with. And I actually like worked with him a little bit back in the day. Like he would pick my brain, you know, he was a younger fighter coming up and asking me like, oh, what I thought about this and that, this position. That's one thing great about Max from the time that I've known him, from when he was like a young kid, like fighting in high school, you know, doing kickboxing fights. He was always hungry and eager to learn and grow and be better. And I still see that in him till this day. But yeah, I don't think a lot of this fight, you know, is going to be spent on the ground. I do know Ilia is actually a wrestler, and he has that wrestling pedigree and background. He has those submissions too. But again, when is the last time you've seen anybody take Max down, let alone keep him there?
True. Very true. Brad, I know you've got to go in a couple of minutes. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for joining. It's so much fun well, me especially. I know, Justin, you were teammates, but for me to meet other UFC fighters, I'm just the biggest fan of the sport. And I have so much respect for all fighters who train and put themselves out there for our entertainment value, and just to show us like what is possible in life, what you can work through, the adversity you can overcome. And I like to take those lessons for myself in my daily journeys and whatever I'm trying to do. So thank you again for joining. Do you have any last thoughts that you want to share about UFC 308 before I know you have to jump off?
No, just shout out to my boy Dan Ige. You know, that's for me will be the main fight.
Yeah, why don't we break down that real quick? Dan Ige is fighting a guy who's 14-0-1.
Yes.
I don't recognize his name, but the little bit of research I've done, this guy's a fucking stud. And you know, I hope that the UFC isn't using Dan as a stepping stone, because Dan Ige is a contender. This guy is as tough as nails. He's shown it time and time again. He showed up short notice, 24-hour notice, goes and fights Diego Lopez, who's going to be fighting for a belt soon. This guy is not a gatekeeper. This guy is not a stepping stone. This undefeated fighter coming in to face Dan Ige is going to have his hands full. Brad, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So, you know, again, you know, I've been in that position many a times. And for me, I'm like, you know what, like, don't even take it personally. Go out there and show them what's up. So yeah, obviously this kid is undefeated. I think he just most recently beat Edson Barboza. I don't know if that was his last fight, but I know he beat him. So they share a common opponent, both with a win over. But yeah, definitely, you know, when you see a young up and coming fighter that's undefeated going against another veteran guy who's already ranked, you know what's on stake there. But you know, I think Dan has looked great, and that's one of the things about Dan, and I love it. And is that a lot of times odd makers, matchmakers, whatever it may be, you know, they just like in the Diego Lopez, you don't even give him a shot. You know, like people are like, oh no, he has no shot, and then he comes out there, and you know, he could have arguably freaking in the third round, if he let Diego up, he could have. I think he would have stopped him, honestly. And this would be a completely different fight this weekend. But I'm just, you know, I think Dan is one of the best dudes I know, and then one of the best fighters I know. And he's no stranger to surprising and shocking everybody. So I won't be shocked if he comes out there tomorrow morning and starches this guy. And I know a lot of people might probably be, but I won't.
All right. Right on. Let's go. We can't wait for that fight. Dan Ige, that's Lerone Murphy, by the way, that he's fighting.
Yeah, Murphy.
And, yep. Undefeated 14-0-1. I think he has one no contest, something like that. But anyways, all right. Well, thank you so much, Brad. We really, really appreciate it. I know it's 11:01, so I'm trying to make sure we don't keep you over. Obviously, you're welcome to stay if you want to stay, but if you got to go, you got to go. We understand.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for having me. And again, like anytime, bro. Anytime you guys want me back on, you know, Justin is a brother to me, so no problem. And it's great to meet you.
Bro. Thanks,
Likewise.
bro. I really appreciate it.
Great to meet you, Brad. Thank you
guys
so
have
much.
a good one. Thank you guys for having me.
You too, Brad. Thank you.
All right, you too.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, so cool. So, guys, if you're joining and Celine says, what's up? She says, good evening. By the way, Celine, if you just joined, I'm not sure how long ago you joined on, but that was Brad Tavares, UFC legend, one of Justin's teammates. So that's one of the benefits of obviously having Justin here, because he's just got great access to all these amazing fighters at Extreme Couture, the best MMA gym on the planet. So that was super cool. All right. So we jumped around a little bit to some of the topics because I wanted to make sure to get Brad's opinion. I mean, wait, Justin, where are you now with Ilia versus Max? You just feel even more cemented that it's Max. Okay.
Max. I mean, I can't flip flop. I've already made a video of why he's going to win. I'm already talking shit to all our viewers of how fucking stupid they are. So fuck everybody. Let's go, Max.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I made that video about why I think Ilia is going to win. Now I feel very, very cemented into that position and that opinion. But it can go either way, and that's the beauty of this fight. It's going to be so exciting.
It can go either way. You're absolutely right. But you know, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is that I've said it before, and I'm so glad Brad reiterated it. You know, I said it in my video. Dude, the motherfucker has 84% takedown defense. Like, that matters, guys. Like, that fucking matters. And if you say it doesn't, like, I'm sorry, you're foolish. Like, and everyone's, oh, well, he hasn't wrestled a wrestler. Brian Ortega is an incredible grappler. Alex Volkanovski. Anybody in the UFC knows how to fucking grapple, dude. This isn't, like, these are the best athletes in fighting in the whole world. We all know how to wrestle, whether you do it or not. But again, going against Max Holloway, knowing how good his takedown defense is, like, if I wrestled in college, my game plan wouldn't be to take down Max Holloway. It'd be to mix in my wrestling to set up my striking to knock Max Holloway out. And I could see Ilia doing that, you know, feinting his wrestling, maybe take some bullshit shots to make Max think, and then look for the knockout shot. That's more realistic than I see him taking him down and controlling the fight.
That's what I think is going to happen. And the difference between Ilia and a lot of the fighters you named, Alexander Volkanovski, Brian Ortega, is that Ilia is the one of those three that has that insane knockout power. So I think it's a dangerous combination. I mean, you're acknowledging.
What about Charles Oliveira? What happened there?
Hold on. Yeah, fair enough. Wait, hold on. When was that fight?
It was a long time ago.
Hold on, let me just look it up real quick. That was back. Oh my God, dude, that was back in 2015. That's
like, come on, this is how long this guy's been around the scene, man. This guy's the truth.
No, I know, but that's not the same Charles Oliveira from like now. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. That's when he was on his kind of like losing streak. But you know, you come in and that's where a lot of fans, they think that, listen, fighters' careers go up and down. Guys will be really good, they could be really good at fight, then they're not going to be good at fight. And Max has been, and that's the thing with fighters. Like, dude, like when I fought Frank Camacho, there was nobody in the world at that night that I thought that could beat me in a fight. And then I go to another fight with a little less confidence. I was very inconsistent with my performance as a professional. Consistency is the hardest thing in MMA, to be able to show up every single time. And that's what separates champions and all-time greats. Anderson Silva showed up every time. You know, and that was one of my drawbacks. If I showed up at the best of my ability every time, my career probably would have been a lot different. But I was like this. I'd be great one day and then shitty another day. Great another, you know. Max is always great. He always shows up. Even when he has a bad performance, he's still showing up better than 99% of the fighters. And I think that's the really thing that's what separates him and cement his legacy. You're talking about fighting Charles Oliveira, former UFC champion, 2015. That's 8 years. That's fucking 9 years ago, and he's still in the UFC. Still, I think he's the most consistent, one of the most consistent fighters of all time.
Wow, that's a really good point. Actually, that consistency element is, I think something that people like me outside of the fight, you know, we're not actual fighters, but we're more fans. It's something you don't really think about, but obviously that makes a lot of sense because consistency is such an important facet of success, period, in general. So that's a good point. I don't know. But anyways, we're going to find out the answer. And this main event is going to be so exciting for that reason tomorrow. By the way, Lane does join. He says, "What's up, guys? Great interview with Brad Tavares. Really appreciate that." And he also reiterates that you have a bet with Lane. I think what were you guys going to do? Like have your hair grow out on the sides or something?
I don't know. We never agreed on anything because I don't even know what Lane looks like. He might look good bald.
Okay, fair. Yeah, so then we can't just go to shaving the head. Fair enough. He goes, Ilia going to be showing other levels, in my opinion, plus that aura. Okay, so I think he's rolling with Ilia as well. And I guess back to Robert Whittaker versus Chimaev real quick. We end with that. You're taking Whittaker. I am going to be putting my money where my mouth is. So tonight I get into Vegas. I'm going to be placing a bet on Chimaev and like a fairly significant bet for myself. So yeah,
place your bet through Aaron. All right.
Okay.
So at 1:30, guys, if you guys are watching, we're coming back with another show at 1:30. Super good Friday. Are we still planning on doing that?
Well, okay. I did not know that we were still doing it at 1:30.
Oh, I thought we were doing Aaron at 1. I thought we were doing Aaron at 1:30.
Okay. Let's talk about it. Maybe I can figure out how to do this because I booked something at 1:15 as I thought we were moving the show. But anyways, we'll figure it out. So we have a professional gambler. We got to make that work because that's going to be amazing. We have a professional gambler that is available to come on today. I think I can work. I think I can work it to make it.
We can adjust the time to 2 o'clock too if you want. He's not doing anything today.
Okay, we'll talk about it offline. But yeah, so we're gonna have a professional gambler come on and talk about what picks he's choosing as a result for this UFC 308. So anyways, hopefully we're gonna come back later today and talk about that. But yeah, I can place it through Aaron, but I want to put my money on Chimaev. I feel like it's only right, even if he loses, I just have to. He's my favorite fighter. What am I doing if I'm not supporting him? So I want to support him. And Lane says he'll be here for the professional gambler. Awesome. So we will be back.
He prefers professional sports better.
Got it. Professional
or poker player. Gambler. He said he thinks gambler sounds too what's the word? Too like sketchy. Like he's kind of like a shiesty. Yeah, like he's sketchy. Yeah. So professional sports better. He's been doing it for 25 years professionally. That's all he does. All he does is sports betting and plays poker. He makes a couple $100,000 a year, and he lives a really great life. So this is somebody that I really look to when I'm placing my bets. Also, when you place your bet, make sure to go through Aaron because he'll give you the best line.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump around. We got a couple other topics that I definitely want to hit. One of these topics, I know we're kind of going a little out of order, is Rakic versus Ankalaev. This is a fight that I feel like is a little bit under the radar, but man, this has all the components to be an amazing fight. And if you've heard some of the interviews of Rakic's coach, Rakic, by the way, if you guys remember, he recently lost to what's his name? Our favorite fighter, not favorite, but like one of our favorites, Yuri Prohaska. And that was a great fight. If you remember, Rakic looked amazing in round 1. His striking was so clean and precise. I thought he was going to win. I'd picked Yuri in the fight, but I after that first round, I thought I had made a huge mistake. Yuri did end up coming back to win, and that was amazing. But Rakic's coach has come out, and I know you don't put too much credibility on these types of statements, but he did say that Rakic was incredibly injured going into that Yuri fight and was not his full self. And we're going to see the real Rakic against Ankalaev. Rakic looks incredibly confident. He looked amazing in the stare down, just ready to go. And again, he's so skilled and technical. I don't know how this is going to go. And I think he could be a really big challenge for Alex Pereira if he does win. But this is a great fight. Not a lot of people are talking about it. Do you have a feeling one way or the other, and how this is going to play out?
Man, I mean, Rakic is so tough, but Ankalaev, man, like this guy's supposed to be the truth. This guy is supposed to be the Potan killer. So, I mean, a lot of questions are going to be answered if he can get by Rakic, and depending on how he does it, if he comes out, it's a lackluster performance. I mean, do you really think he can beat, arguably the greatest light heavyweight of right now? I don't say the greatest of all time. I'm saying the greatest right now. So I don't want that misconstrued right now, but this is going to answer some questions, man. Ankalaev, everyone's hype on his grappling, but from my understanding, his primary is striking, and I'm sure you can. Right. And man, this fight's going to tell a lot. If he can if he can get through Rakic, that's going to say some stuff, and you know what? We might have a big title fight coming up after that.
And it's also going to give us a rough idea of how the fight's going to go against Poatan, because he did say, I'm not going to grapple Poatan. I'm going to go in and strike with him, because that's what he does. As you mentioned, he's primarily a striker with a great wrestling base. So let's see how he does against Rakic. Let's see his game plan, and that's going to give us an idea. And then if he does win, we can sort of start to envision this Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev fight, which I feel like has a lot of hype, because somehow it's gotten people have gotten the idea that Poatan is trying to run from Ankalaev, which I don't think is true whatsoever. He's just taking the fights that the UFC is putting in front of him. But now I think it's sort of, because of that narrative, it's built some hype, and this is really exciting. So this is a #1 contenders fight, even though they're not calling it that. That's what it really is. And so very, very exciting. Okay, a couple other things I want to talk about. Obviously, we've got Shara Bullet coming back. Oh, wait, let's see what Lane says. He says, my money's on Rakic over Ankalaev. Oh, being over 2.5 rounds. Yeah, that very well.
That's a good bet. That's a great bet. I mean, Rakic is, yeah, I like the over 2.5. I tell you what, the overs are hitting so much more now in the UFC, and they're saying the gloves are to blame. Listen, these gloves are smaller than the gloves before. They're like, oh, well, there's less knockouts. It has nothing to do with the gloves. I just think it has everything to do with everybody's skill going up and everyone's striking defense going up with everything, because you can't get smaller gloves, harder gloves. Like, oh, the gloves are the reason the knockouts. I think everyone's just getting better, and I love that over bet, by the way.
That's probably, I mean, I would have to imagine that's probably more likely the culprit is just the skill set evolve and the sport evolving and whatnot. Okay, so now let's talk about Shara Bullet. This is so exciting. One of the most talked about mixed martial arts, but specifically kickboxer, striking specialist, and he's going up against somebody who's probably going to grapple with him, who's probably going to try and take him down. Another little wrinkle in the story is we saw that Khamzat was the last person to weigh in. Shara Bullet was the second to last person, also cutting it very, very close. Came out, looked okay, didn't seem to be stumbling or anything like that, but it was definitely a late weigh-in. Taking all this into consideration. First of all, how excited are you for this fight? Because I'm very excited, number one. And number two, do you have a thought on how it's going to go down?
I'm not hype behind Shara Bullet just yet. I'm not saying because he's not a great fighter. I think he has a great story. He has a great look. Being blind in one eye, obviously, I always support the underdog in that. But the guy he's had some really good fights, but no notable fights. Like every time he has an opponent, who's he fighting?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to tell you the name. So I'm not familiar with the guy's name, but here
that's the thing, and that's what it's hard to get excited for me about. It's like I think I've watched him fight 3 times. I've never recognized his opponent in all 3, and he's having great performances. But it's about time this guy fights somebody with some notoriety, because all I feel like the UFC is just giving him fights he's supposed to win. Now he's 4-0. He's the blind fighter. Now it's like, oh shit, we have something behind. But until he fights somebody of some kind of notoriety, I'm not excited about. I mean, I don't hate the guy. I think he's great. But it's hard for me to get excited about a guy that hasn't fought anybody yet. And when he fights somebody, he's probably going to win. But until those questions are answered, I don't get hype about anybody.
Yeah, and so the guy's name, fair enough. The guy's name is Armen Petrosian, and I had actually been hearing that he was planning to take Shara Bullet down. But the thing is, I'm looking at his Wikipedia page right now, and he's got a Muay Thai background. And if you look at his last several fights, most of them have been decision wins. He did get a submission. No, he was submitted, by an arm triangle choke in his last fight, but he had 2 decisions, unanimous before that. He lost to Borjalho. If you know that guy, Borjalho, he used to train with Khamzat, actually. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know why people were saying maybe he is saying he's going to take him down or whatnot, commit to grappling, but it does seem like he's got a striking background. So maybe this is another potential layup for Shara Bullet, but I'm all for it. Because I want to see that. I want to see Shara Bullet keep winning because he's fun. He's exciting. He's got the look. He's got the whole thing is very, very cool. So I can't wait for that. Okay, one other fight that has been potentially announced. This has not been made official, but apparently Kamaru Usman. We got to talk about Usman, by the way, because I want to say some things about Usman. I'm really becoming a much bigger fan of Usman as of late, and I want to tell you why. But it's Kamaru Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena. What a fight. Right? Jack Della Maddalena is the guy who was calling for Shavkat, is just a beast. His striking is so precise and amazing. He's very well-rounded. He's a terrific fighter. And for him to fight Usman, that's a big fight. But before we jump into this fight, let me tell you why I become such a big fan of Usman. So one of the things that people used to always say, or a lot of people would say, I guess, on like YouTube and Reddit and whatnot, is that Usman's not very exciting or interesting in interviews. And, we've talked about this many times, right? What makes a fighter engaging and what gets people attracted or excited about a fighter? And in my opinion, from the personality standpoint, I've always said, and this is what you're really good at yourself, it's just being yourself, being you, being comfortable enough with yourself to be able to talk freely and openly, not seeming like you're rehearsing things or you're reading from a script or whatnot, right? And I think that allows people like me, the fans, to connect. I think Usman was never able to do that, but now he's got a podcast with Henry Cejudo. I don't know if you've seen it. And he is finally like getting comfortable, I feel like, talking on camera and being himself. And you just see this whole world of Kamaru Usman's really intelligent insights into the fight game. You see his real personality. And I think people are now able to connect with him. People like myself as well. It's become one of my favorite podcasts, by the way. You got to check this out. It's so good. The analysis is amazing. But anyways, I've become such a big fan of Usman as a result. How do you feel about him? And just about from the personality, fighting aside, have you been a fan of Usman or so-so?
Oh, always been, man. A couple of years ago, I was coaching a kids class, and I'll never forget the first time I met Usman. I was coaching a kids class, and he came up from behind me, and one of the boys was facing away from me. The boy I was coaching, Lucas, he was facing away from me, and Usman come up to me, he tapped me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Do you mind?" And I was like, "Oh no." So he gets in a wrestling stance, and and this is when he was the champ, and he taps one of my students on the shoulder. And my student turns around. He's like, oh, and Usman's in a wrestling stance, and we're in wrestling class. So, dude, I've always liked this guy. I thought he didn't need to do that. I didn't ask him to do that. He did that on his own. And I just thought it was really cool that he was able to reach out. Not to mention, I mean, he made that student's fucking day, man. And it was just a very short 15-second interaction. But it just goes to show you what kind of person this guy is, man. Like, again, I didn't ask him to do that. He went out of his way, came into the class and did that. And, I've always liked the guy. Unfortunately, I think he's on his downfall right now. He's had a lot of knee injuries. I think Jack Maddalena is going to go in there, and I think he's going to handle business with relative ease.
Wow. Okay. Well, and I think it's a great matchup. It can be it will be an amazing victory if JDM is able to pull it off. So I guess we'll see, but I'm not sleeping on Kamaru. I think he is hungry. I think he's motivated. I think he's ready. I think he was calling for a lot of other fights. I think he was even open to fighting Shavkat. So he's taking on JDM, a big challenge. I'm excited to see if he still got what it takes. And by the way, I want to end on one note. Usman did say on the show, and I think I mentioned this on Monday, he's picking Khamzat to beat Whittaker. And I think he probably knows Khamzat better than anybody. He's the last guy to fight him, and I think that speaks volumes. So I'm hoping he's right. I know you're going the other way, but I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is today. So we'll see what happens. And again, guys, if you can join us later, hopefully we can work this out timing wise to get Aaron on here, and we'll do another show with a professional sports bettor. So that's going to be very exciting. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you guys could click that like button, we'd appreciate it. And make sure to subscribe if you want to join along in all the fun. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.